What's up, everybody? We are doing a live today with divorce coach, a man today, Rob Malkani, and we're going to be talking about blindsided by divorce. What does that mean? Does that happen to men? Does it happen to women? Just the feeling that I think we all go through when we are going through divorce. And I do think it's both sexes, but interesting to hear a man's perspective. So we're going to hear from two guys, both named Rob. Two middle-aged men trying to figure out how to do Instagram Live. I mean,
There
must-see
we go.
TV.
Keeping it real.
So Rob is a divorce coach, and I was saying it's a fresh perspective to hear from other guys about divorce.
Yeah. Thanks for saying that, Rob. I appreciate it. I mean, one of the things that I've learned over the years is that it's often hard for guys to talk about it. You know, we tend to bottle these things up, don't always have a great support community. And when I've been connected to guys over the years, they're always like, oh, thanks for talking to me. And I really didn't have anyone to talk to. But in all honesty, I've helped women talk to women, and the community we're creating here, yours, mine, it's for everyone.
Yeah, it's interesting how there's such different point of views, but at the same time, whoever's instigating the divorce is going through a serious, just emotional roller coaster that unless you've actually been through it, I find it to be really hard to understand. I liken it in a lot of ways to before you have kids to after you have kids. You just can't understand what that experience is like.
Couldn't agree more. And especially on the blindsided side, because I know that's kind of the topic today. It can be deeply traumatic, and it can take a long time to heal from it. I mean, even if you weren't blindsided, but if you were, and I talk to a lot of people going through that, and it's always the same. Your world feels like it's shattered in an instant, and you don't know what life is going to be like. And especially if you're, let's say, in your late 30s or 40s or even into your 50s or older, you feel like that's it, it's over. And the key thing that I always start out telling folks is you're going to get to the other side. There's an other side, and it's this awesome, beautiful life. I made some jokes in some of my posts about how it's not all going to Coachella and partying all day. That's not what it's about. It's about finding peace and happiness. And there's a good chance you're going to be even happier than you were before. And don't feel guilty about that. That's okay.
Are you saying we're not going to Burning Man later this year together? I think that's our next retreat.
I'll meet you there. Just send me the directions.
And I'll add to that. I think, and I found this to be almost like, sounds bad to say dismissive, but there is truth to things will be better. But I find like that first year acknowledging that it's probably going to be worse before it gets better. And I think there's a disconnect that people have when you hear people saying, oh, this will be great, Rob. You're going to meet somebody. It wasn't the right relationship for you, but you're feeling terrible. So I think it helps to know that like you're entering, you're walking down into hell a little bit during the process. And even that first year, I say, almost just write that off to an experience like nothing else.
I couldn't agree more. And just a tiny bit about my backstory. So we split about 7 years ago, and it was the worst of it all at once, right? I find myself getting divorced unexpectedly. We're in a custody battle where I thought I was going to lose my kids, excuse me, completely. We're in court over money. We had to cohabitate for a time. Everything just terrible. And I'll throw in that we were going to move because I was taking a new job. And so then when we didn't, because we got divorced, now I'm looking for a job. And for that several months, I'm talking, you don't want to get out of bed. You're losing weight. You're so depressed. And I had a couple of friends, one in particular, tell me, hey, Rob, this is how you need to think about it. This was 2017 at the time, going into 2018. And he said, don't think about 2018, Rob. Don't even think about 2019, Rob. And I was like, all right, this is sounding scary. He goes, think about 2020, Rob. And 2020, Rob, is going to be amazing. Everything will have stabilized. You'll be getting through it to the other side. Life will have normalized. You'll be back to like your friendships, yourself. Probably you'll be dating again. You may even have a better relationship with your kids, which all turned out to be true. But you're right, it's hell in the beginning in ways that unless you've gone through it, you really can't understand.
Absolutely. That guy didn't tell you, Rob, by the way, the world's going to also shut down in 2020. So have fun getting out there once you're new Rob.
I will tell you though, look, when you're after you've gone through this kind of stuff, you figure out how to get creative. So it was like, let's go for a walk, let's get a coffee and sit on a bench in the park. So, we all learn, we all adjust.
Yeah. I actually went through my divorce start of the pandemic 2020, and there was so much chaos going on that you almost can't identify what's driving you crazy. And in some ways, I find that to be like I can embrace that in some ways because you get this as a parent too. There's just so many things going on that you can't even pinpoint your stressor. And when everything is caving in on you, maybe that's not the worst thing. It just lets you grind through it.
That's so true. And I think you're tapping into a big, broader, really important point, which is when this all happens, and by that I mean you're getting divorced, you're on the receiving end, you don't know which way is up. One of the most important things is just figuring out like what to do. Like there's so many issues. Okay, do you need a lawyer? And are you going to cohabitate? And who spends time with the kids? And even stuff that may not occur to you now, but you're like, do we keep sharing access to all the technology and passwords and this is that? All of a sudden your head is spinning, and just taking a minute to breathe and sort of stabilize and figure out what the priorities are. That's such a big deal. And that's kind of job number one, step number one, like all the healing and all that other stuff, you're going to get to that. But day one, you're just like, okay, what do I do now?
Yeah, who's getting the Netflix password? Because are we family sharing? There's so many like the
All right.
minutia of details of even like the phones and the kids can really just
Okay.
it's so many the decision fatigue I think is personally
Dis-
what hits me the hardest.
Decision fatigue. But I got a joke about the Netflix thing. So first of all, let me just say, like, I'm on the other side, many years in the rearview mirror. I co-parent really well with my girl's mother. Okay, so this is nothing about her. In the heat of battle, those stuff happens. And she had just moved into her new place. The first day, I'm watching a movie with my girls, and it shuts off. And I was like, wait a minute. I text her. She goes, yeah, Netflix is mine. So, and then of course, like all the Microsoft subscriptions. Then I realized, wow, everything that was family now me. And I was like, sign up, sign up, sign up, and again, like you see, we can laugh about it now, but in the moment, it just adds to the trauma because there's so many things you got to deal with. So,
Well, I think it's the little things that trigger the bigger emotions. And like you're sitting with your daughters watching, Moana, and the thing shuts off. And now it's not, oh, this is annoying, let's just resubscribe. It's like the nerve of this person. Doesn't she thinking about me? Like, would I ever do something like that? And then you get into that just vicious cycle.
100%. And I will say, for many months, I dealt with a ton of those things, a ton of those things. And then now I can look back years later, and honestly, if anything like that happened right now, I would ignore it and just sign up for it. Obviously, it's all done, but you get to a point, you build up a lot of resilience in sort of how to deal with that stuff emotionally. But in the beginning, you're not equipped at all for that. Every little thing. I joke like we fought over. At one point, she came to take stuff out of the house because she had moved out. But obviously, I welcomed her back to get stuff, and she wanted the chef's knife from the kitchen, and I was like, "You already bought four at your house. You want the last one?" And you fight over little stuff like that. And my advice is, looking back, probably just try to let as much of that stuff go. Just get through it, focus on yourself moving forward, and you'll be much happier than you did that. But in the moment, man, that last knife, I want that knife.
Uh, God, that could have gone really badly. That last knife. It's like a metaphor for all of this. So,
It
so
could have.
tell us, the name of your page is Blindsided by Divorce. Tell us, what does that mean to feel blindsided by divorce? And is that something specific to the one that receives the filing?
Yeah, so I was on a journey over the last 7 years going through what I went through, the initial trauma, and I've lived through it all. When I say all of it, I mean all of it. I've lived in court for 7 years, been through everything. And I had enough conversations with people who looked to me for some advice that just recently I realized I want to help people. I want to help build a community for folks who have gone through this, are going through this, where they can turn for a little bit of support, maybe get a laugh occasionally, learn some stuff, get some real practical advice. And I personally was blindsided by my divorce. And so I decided to call it, it's BBD, Blindsided by Divorce. That's the Instagram page. And it's for folks who have been blindsided. And a lot of times people will ask, well, what does that mean? How did you know? Were you really blindsided? How did you not see the signs? And here's how I define it. If 1 minute you're thinking, I'm going to grow old with this person, we're a family, we're going to, be together for, years, decades, whatever. It may not be perfect. I'm not saying it had to be a fairy tale, right? No marriage is. But then the next minute you find out you're getting divorced and you're in shock and all of a sudden your world changes. That's blindsided. And so I set this up for folks who are experiencing that to come and get a little bit of help. But again, one of the things that I'm seeing quickly is that it's for people, maybe you weren't blindsided necessarily, or maybe you even initiated it for whatever reason. You were cheated on and you felt like you needed to end it, or you just grew apart. It turns out the community is a lot broader than I thought it would be. But the initial idea is for folks who had that shock of finding out the marriage is over.
Right. Do you find, and it's interesting that the statistics show that it's 70, even 80+% are initiated by women. Do you hear a lot more from guys that have this feeling?
I do. I definitely do. And just in the last month or so, I've heard about several. And I know, look, there may be some eye rolls out there like, hey, how could you not know? And that may be true, right? Maybe the person, man or woman, should have known, but the emotional impact is similar whether you should have known and didn't, or shouldn't have known and didn't. You didn't. That is the point. And so you find yourself in this moment where you're deeply traumatized and in a lot of pain and don't know which way is up. But yes, it's more the men who I find have been shocked. But another example, a woman I got connected with recently, literally just out of nowhere, like a month into they're young folks and it was, really early, but she got blindsided. So it happens both ways, but it does tend to be men more often.
What do you think how does that impact men differently, in your opinion, than women? I have some thoughts on it, but I'm curious to hear what you think the difference is.
Uh, so if they're both blindsided, how does it affect them differently? That's a really interesting question. I haven't thought about that, but I will tell you one of the things that I would have thought is that men think, okay, fine, I'll recover, I'll go on and date. And I might have thought, more women might think, oh, wow, my life is over. It's true of both. So many men tell me after they hear that it's over, what am I going to do? I'm going to come home to this empty house. I'm never going to date again. So I've seen a lot of similarity for both people. They're just immediately thinking my life is over. But I am curious, what do you think?
Well, personally, and I had moved to a new city, so I didn't have the same friend group locally, but I find that women have a lot better, and to their credit, they cultivate a better friendship circle. So when it happens, they're already talking about topics like this. When it happens to men, I mean, your friends, especially if they're married, which 95% of my friends were married, they didn't even know what to say. No reason that they should. But I think we isolate ourselves more, so we get in that loop where we can't even get it out. We're probably less apt to go to therapy, or even if we go to therapy, it might not be the right therapist. You don't know what to say. So I feel that men deal with it on their own a lot more. And even in a bad or mediocre marriage, there is just like that unit that
Yeah.
you can fight, you can go downstairs, you can sleep in the other room. And when you're, 2 weeks later living in your own bachelor pad apartment with your kids at their mom's house, and you don't have somebody to talk to, your friends are like, "Oh, what's up with the dating apps? You going out now?" It's just a feeling of like complete overwhelm and isolation that I wonder if women deal with it the same way.
So that is a really great point. I hadn't thought about it in those terms, but that is exactly what happened with me. Immediately after it happened, my ex had most of the friendships in town because it was mostly the women in the couples who were supporting her. She had family nearby who could come down and be with her. Like you said, she had other close friendships that she had cultivated. So she immediately had a support system. My family lives, 1,500 miles away. I live in New York. They're down in Florida, like, my extended family in that way. My closest friends were kind of in different places and in Boston and in LA. And that's just sort of natural with men. And so you're right. I did not have the support system. So I had to quickly create one. And that's one of the things that I think men need to think about, which is, okay, what kind of support system do you need? Do you have family to talk to? Are there some friends that you're in touch with, or do you need to reach out to? Again, you should definitely think about potentially talking to a therapist, but immediately you need to think about, what do I need? Because my mental health is critical immediately,
Hmm.
really.
How did any tips that you had of, because I find it uncomfortable. The other piece that people don't get is, if there's a death in the family or something, people usually come to you and talk. But with divorce, maybe you get a few, sorry to hear it, but it's on you now to be the one to initiate. Hey, Rob, want to go grab a beer one night? I'd love to talk. Rob's married, he's got kids. Oh, I can't come. Try again. Sorry, I can't do it Saturday. Now all of a sudden, you're like, I'm trying. Nobody's out there for me.
Yeah.
I think that's another thing. These like micro rejections that you get when you're like, all right, I'm going to reach out. You don't get them, and now you throw your hands up and you isolate yourself, and it becomes that cycle.
I think that is a really great point. And I'll say, look, the expectation might be, okay, get out there, get a whole bunch of people you're going to do stuff with. That may not be realistic. And in my case, I had my sister and brother-in-law who I was talking to all the time as it went down. I had a couple close friends that I was talking to all the time. And I don't mind admitting it here. Like, I went to talk to somebody. Okay. I went into therapy. I started meditating. I downloaded Headspace immediately. I threw myself into the gym. I kind of lived in the gym and exercising. And for a while, I was not ready to get out. And I remember for months, like almost a year, this is going to maybe sound terrible, but it worked for me. I kind of did my own thing. I threw myself into working out. I had my kids half the time, thankfully, even though we were fighting about it. And that was my circle, and it worked for me. And then when I was ready, I got back out there and started dating and seeing friends again. And, life got back to normal. But you need something. You can't just be the guy who, if you find yourself in an apartment because you left the house or wherever, don't isolate yourself completely, because you have a good chance of spinning into depression and other unhealthy things. You hear a lot, therapists will say men deal with it through alcohol or possibly drugs or other things. You need some sort of support system. You got to get it.
Yeah, and I saw one of the comments is, why is therapy such a dirty word? And that is a common thing. I think we're more open to it than we've ever been, but I'll even say it's like there's a lot of friction to finding a therapist. It's expensive. You're getting divorced next week. The therapist is available in October. Like, it's not as easy as you think, and that's why, I mean, had I known about, people like you when I was going through it, I think this idea of a divorce coach, talk to a few different people, have some consultations, find person that you can relate to. And even a step before that, and this is kind of why I started this page and the podcast, is go on Instagram and TikTok and follow some of these accounts. Watch some of the ridiculous memes and the 10-second clips of Rob talking, because that can be your first introduction to, like, oh my God, he's saying the words that I'm going through. Nobody else in my real life circle is saying that. And that's the way you can do it while you're driving in the car. Just give you something to connect with somebody else that understands what you're going through.
Yeah, I think there's a couple great points in there. One on the therapy is, you're right. It's not easy to find the right person. I actually think I got lucky. I found somebody in town, and she was awesome and gave me some incredible advice. I'll just share the two pieces of advice. One was breathe, because in the immediate aftermath, you're just like suffocated with all the stuff you got to do. So just take a breath. And then the other was slow down. Nothing's going to happen overnight. Slow down. That's okay. But then to your other point about finding a community, I don't even think I was on Instagram. I definitely was not on Instagram when my divorce started. I literally wasn't on. went on after. And had I known there was a place where I could go and hear about other people going through it, I just would have known I'm not alone. And I would have heard people talk about the things I was encountering and been like, oh, okay, let the Netflix password go. Who cares about the blender? Everybody's telling me, oh, wow, it's going to take a year or two before you're like really feeling awesome again. That's good to know, because I felt, hey, maybe I should feel okay within a month. It's happening. Too bad. Get over it. So I think all those resources are just really incredibly helpful.
Yes. And I see a couple people asking if they can speak. I'll be honest, Rob and I, this is already a lot for us to navigate. The two people on the Instagram Live, three people might blow our minds. So, Rob, let people know where they can find you and learn more about how you can help.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. So just want to reiterate, it is a community where people can come and, share, engage with each other. I see people commenting on each other's situations a lot. So come and join the conversation. And if you feel like, hey, talking to me one-on-one could be helpful, that's great. Feel free to do that too. So obviously on Instagram, you probably can see where we are. It's BBD Blindsided by Divorce. You can DM me and we can have an initial chat and see if there's a way I can help. You can also go to bbdblindsidedbydivorce.com, and there's not a lot there other than other ways to reach out, sending a message or sending a text. But again, don't go through this alone. Don't feel like you need to be a martyr or so strong you don't reach out to anybody for help. Get help. And so whether it's with me, a community like Rob's got, WTF Divorce, a combination, get some help.
Yeah, you have to invest in yourself during this time, and we could spend $30,000 on a divorce, and like the thought of spending a few $100s to talk to somebody is like, oh, I'm not going to do that. So there's we talked about this on our call, like you're divorced now, you're not married, you're not in an unhappy marriage. So, it's going to be hard, but make the most of this opportunity that you do have.
Yeah, and I think that's a really great point to end on, because a lot of this stuff out there, not you trying to keep it light and humorous and help people. I think try to uplift people every day when they come to you. Even on BBD, Blindsided by Divorce, and a lot of others, we often talk about the negative stuff, like the challenges. And I think mostly rightfully so, because it's the hard stuff you want some guidance on. But the truth is, there is a wonderful, incredible second act coming. It's going to take you a while to get there, but your life is not over. You're going to discover, I really believe this, in a lot of cases, better relationship with your kids, maybe better relationship with friends and family, maybe a life reset. I posted something this morning. I'm not the first person to say it, but it's the idea of stop giving an F. Stop giving an F about all the things you care about. Because guess what? Your marriage blew up. You never thought that was going to happen. Things can happen in an instant. And Rob, do we just 2 minutes? I want to share one.
Please do. Go ahead.
Which is, we had a personal family tragedy in my extended family last year, and I won't go into a lot of details, but my sister lost her son, so my nephew, to an accidental drug overdose. And it's a sad story, and I don't want to bring everybody down, and I won't get into it, but I mention it because your life can change in a moment, and all the things you thought were worth fighting over, that stupid Netflix password, something that didn't work out, someday you're going to look back and realize, wow, why did I care so much about all that stuff? And so I hope part of the journey is you realize what's important, and it is your family, and it's your relationships, and it's all those things. Yeah, you got to try, and you got to make enough money to provide, like, yes, all that stuff matters. But at the end of the day, focus on what's really important. And in your second act here, you can have a really beautiful, wonderful life.
Yeah. Yeah, and unfortunately, I don't think you can go through a lot of that unless you experience the pain of loss or of divorce. A lot of people that are in these mediocre or bad marriages are not going to have the same opportunity because they are kind of trapped in it. So, like, that is, the gift of a divorce, I say. It takes a while to get there and unwrap it, but you're getting an opportunity in your 40s that a lot of people don't get.
It really is. And I'll say, just personally, and I've known lots of people like this, you worry about a lot of stuff. Like you're under stress and you're worried, whether it's job, retirement, something about your kids, or, a fight you had. And then after the divorce, like you said, the gift of it is getting a new perspective on everything. And hey, it's it would be great if you could do that while you were married or younger in life. It doesn't usually happen that way, but now that is the gift. I couldn't agree more.
Thank you, Rob. We will be sharing more of your content on our page, and everybody go follow Rob on BBD Blindsided by Divorce.
Thanks, Rob. Really appreciate it. Huge thanks to you and to your whole community. Thanks for having
Yeah,
me today.
and thank you everybody for watching. See you guys.
Bye bye.